Well, hello everybody. My name's Dee Dee Vergados from miraclesofmind.tv, and today we have our very special guest, Camille Jarmusz. Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me.
You're very welcome. And let me tell you a little bit about Camille. She is so interesting. She holds a BA in psychology, is a certified hypnotist and NLP practitioner, standing for neuro-linguistic programming, a holistic practitioner, and a psychic medium. For the past 28 years, Camille has had a private wellness practice where she offers hypnosis, intuitive life coaching, Reiki, divine guidance reading, and holistic healing. As a hypnotist, Camille believes that our words and our thoughts can be reprogrammed at the unconscious level to redefine our DNA, our behaviors, and our thoughts and our results in life. In 2004, Camille learned to be a psychic medium after her baby sister passed away from a brain malfunction caused by a tragic sledding accident. Camille, desperate to reconnect with her, began to communicate with the spirits on the other side, and as a result, she is now considered a renowned expert in the field and has been featured on several national radio shows. Adding yet another tool to her toolkit, Camille was motivated to learn alternative healing after her son was born with various medical conditions. Camille used natural healing methods and interventions, and as a result, she and her son were able to receive many healings. Camille is also the designer and owner of a certified organic skincare line, Natural Image Care, as seen on the shopping channel in Canada. So, Camille, like many of our guests, you arrived at being involved with the healing arts through a series of tragedies.
Yes, the mother of invention is usually out of necessity.
Right. So tell us a little bit about, well, let's begin with the psychic, with becoming a psychic medium, because that's not an easy task. But again, because of your desperation, it sounds like, to connect with your sister and to find out, I guess, if she was okay.
Well, I missed her, and she was 33 when she passed, and I was 35. So that was 12 years ago. I'm 47 now. And I always had these gifts and abilities, but I hid from them because I grew up in a Christian home, and that was not allowed.
Okay.
So I tried not to be who I was, and I would get a lot of information about people, and I would just try to shut the radio station off because I would be hearing, okay, she has bulimia and she could die if you don't do something about it, so tell her how much you think she's special. I would get all this information. So I finally learned how to just turn the radio stations down so I wouldn't hear it because I felt like I was going a little cuckoo. And my mom has the ability, and my grandma as well. Okay. So out of necessity, my back was up against the wall, and I was begging God for my son's healing. Basically trying to save his life at the time when things were at his all-time low. He is at his best and highest now, so it's a happy story now. Mm-hmm. But when we were in the trenches and I was scared to death, I was praying, and I asked God, please just do whatever you have to do to heal him, because everything I've tried to do, I've spent every dollar I could possibly find an alternative. I'm eating bagels and $1 frozen meals so he can eat his all organic food and homeschool him because he can't fit in a normal school. And I said, if you will just, show me what to do for him, I'll spend the rest of my life teaching people how to do it. And I was led to hypnosis, and I was led to opening up my gifts and abilities. I basically heard, listen, I gave you these gifts and abilities for a reason because you need them, so use them.
Wow.
So I started using them, and then I started getting channeled information in of what my son needed, and I kept hearing the word hypnosis, hypnosis. And so I went and took the certification classes, started using it, and I'll tell you how it helped him, but it was the key that we were missing to his healing.
Because you were doing all the right things in terms of special diet and alternative medicine, supplements, all of that.
Yes. A toxic-free home, no chemical cleaners, I wasn't even using hairspray because I was going to an environmental allergy clinic, pediatrician for him, and she taught me how to completely clean our entire lifestyle up. It was very expensive to do at the time. I've learned how to do it less expensively now, and I teach my clients.
It's very expensive to take all the chemicals out.
It is, unfortunately. But now I learned the ways to do it that's less, it's not nearly as costly as the things I had to do. I had to have special customized allergy shots for him because he was allergic to normal allergy shots.
Wow.
And in the U.S., the medical coverage did not cover it, even though he has the best medical coverage. Everything I did for him that worked was not covered by the medical coverage.
Right.
Thankfully, I went and got trained for the hypnosis, and because it was his miracle healing, I now offer it to my clients in my private practice.
So there's your first miracle right there, your son.
Yes.
So how was it the key with him? Like, what did it unlock or remove or change?
Well, a year prior to me going for hypnosis, I trained with a healer in Pittsburgh, PA. It was a 5-hour drive, and I trained for a year. And basically what he taught me how to do, because he had already done it with people before, was how to remove tumors in the body.
Oh,
okay.
Interesting.
And my son was at risk for a bunch of stuff. He had MRIs that they said, okay, we're going to redo the MRI, and then we're going to decide if we're going to do surgery. And I was scared to death. So I was also told that if he did have something, that if you didn't put him on chemotherapy or whatever, if the medical world said you had to do that, then CPS could come and take your kid away. And I already looked at the research. The research showed that it wasn't going to work anyway. So I was desperate to find answers before we ever went down that aisle.
And if he can't even deal with an allergy shot, chemotherapy would certainly
Exactly, because he
into the ground.
He had MCS, multiple chemical sensitivities and food allergies. A lot of people are bedridden their entire life with this disorder, and they can't function. They can't go to work. They're on disability, and and my son was headed for that or worse, based on what they were saying. Yeah. So this healer showed me all these cool energetic healing abilities that are under the title of Reiki, but they're more advanced types.
Right.
And it worked really well. However, he basically boiled it down, because I was the kind of person who asked a million questions, to, and you're going to be surprised when I share this with you, when you're working with a child and it's your own child, you're sharing the same energy field. And and in hypnosis, it's all about what you tell yourself in your subconscious mind, right? Okay, and what you think and feel and believe is all based on the programming that's in your subconscious mind. And sometimes we're unaware of the programming because it's patterns that were set up from events in this lifetime, and many believe in past lives. So with that, I put the connection together, because a year prior to learning this, the healer friend in Pittsburgh taught me that because I'm sharing my son's energy field, because we're so close, the way I look at him and think about him was creating his energy field.
It was influencing him, yeah.
So I was looking at him as a kid that was going to maybe have to have brain surgery, who was kicked out of school, who wasn't able to function because chemicals were tripping his neurotransmitters, and he would lose impulse control. So if he was frustrated at school and the neurotransmitters were already tripped, instead of a normal frustration of a he would throw books across the room, and on a really bad day, desks and chairs, and then the room would have to be evacuated. And the doctor said this is not his fault, and he doesn't have a behavior disorder like the school says. He does not have an emotional disorder. He simply is allergic to the chemicals that are tripping his neurotransmitters and causing his brain to think he's on cocaine or LSD. And so we have to take the chemicals out of his life and the foods that he's allergic to, and lower the level of toxins that he's getting exposures to every day.
Which is very hard in this world.
So
there's perfume and toxins and everything.
Yeah, so she taught me what they all are, and then she taught me to look at, her name is Dr. Kalpana Patel. She's actually my endorsing physician for my skincare line, as well as my private practice is in her office, and she's an MD, which is a really big honor as a hypnotist to practice in an MD's office. But she taught me that you have to look at the glass, and as far as a glass of water, every time your son or yourself or anybody else for that matter breathes something that's toxic, the water goes up a little higher. And when they eat something that's toxic, and you know all the foods we already know, the GMOs and the, you know, the glutens and the dairies that are just going to set off alarm bells in our system.
Right.
We all know what they are now. If you eat some of those and you breathe the chemicals, and then if there's chemicals in the house, like I wasn't even allowed to use hairspray at the time, I can now, it would make the water go up higher. And then one last exposure would cause the water to spill out. And that one last exposure would trip the neurotransmitters to throwing desks and chairs through the room. So all he would have to do is open the top on a marker, breathe it, and that could be the last exposure.
It's horrible.
So we had to be homeschooled for 3.5 years, and in that time we figured out how to heal. And now he's a straight A student on the honor roll in a normal mainstream school building.
Wow.
With a best friend, which he wasn't able to make friends. He was basically displaying as an autistic child, and he's healed of that. And it was through the hypnosis, because it was really just changing the way I thought about him, the way I talked to him, and the way he thought about himself. So I basically had to just tell him, that chapter of your life is over. You're healed now. You will no longer be...
But you had to believe it, too.
But I had to shift me first.
Yes.
And I did protect him by not telling my mom and dad that what was going on, because they were a glass is half empty attitude people.
Right.
So I made sure that I didn't tell anybody what was going on that was not able to be a glass is half full and overflowing positive attitude. Right. So I really only talked to my close 1 or 2 psychic medium healer friends that I felt comfortable with. And then his doctor, thank God, she had that same attitude.
But that's quite an endeavor to clear out all your beliefs about things you've been told about him, so that in turn everything that you believe gets transferred to him. That's huge. That must have taken you quite a while to clean all that out.
Well, I was desperate, because he's 16 now. He's a junior in high school. He's going for engineering and robotics, and he just got invited to a birthday party, which that never happened when he was younger, because his parents would be like, we can't have that kid.
Right.
Who knows what's going to happen?
Now, how often do you think that kids who are diagnosed with autism are suffering from the same kind of thing as your son, only they've been labeled with these other labels?
Well, I'm not afraid to take risks here and having people not like what I say, because I'm a risk taker, but I believe they all are.
Yeah, because a lot of it, and again, you know, it's been said, not like we're saying it, but vaccinations are pretty toxic.
Right. My son is not vaccinated.
Oh, so that's interesting.
Because he was born with that neurological medical condition that was, I don't even give the name out. So people ask me, I say, he no longer has it. So I only talk about this with the intention of helping others heal. And God and the universe and myself and my son know that. But I don't put the name to it because it's no longer there, and we're not going to pull that back into his energy field.
Okay, good.
So I just called a neurological thing that was once a part of his life that was only given to us as a gift, so we could learn how to heal it, so that we could be messengers in the world of how to help all these other kids and adults, which I think is really cool. This is how I think. I think that all these kids that are autistic are coming to the world to force all of us adults, and especially the high-powered couples that have autistic kids that have a lot of money and a lot of influence, because the only way to help them...
And maybe own those companies too.
Yes, the only way to help them is to clean up the environment, the food, the toxins, And as a result, the more that come, our planet will then be healed, and then our whole environment. Because even they're also sensitive to toxic behaviors and attitudes too. So it's about the healing that our planet is looking for.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have a nephew that it's almost like he's slightly autistic, and I remember once when his mom and dad were fighting, he started to bang his head, like he couldn't take anything, too much emotion, too much anything. It was just everything affected him so much more than it would any other. And he used to, it's so interesting, I wonder if your son did this, when he would look at me when he was a child, he would look around me, and he was seeing something all around me.
Well, they're all
extra sensitive.
Well, they're also, in my opinion, once again, I will make that disclaimer, but I feel very strongly about it. They're all very psychic, intuitive,
I
healer
got that
kids.
feeling because he wasn't like a normal child. He was clearly entertained by something around me. He was not looking, and he was watching it.
Well, they're all holding, and I'm not even going to make my disclaimers anymore. Everybody knows. They're all holding the vibration of peace and love for the planet. Okay, and then that's radiating off of them, and that's the change. That's their sole purpose. I believe that the individuals who choose, again, another something that not everybody believes, but I believe that the individuals who choose to incarnate and come back to this planet for another lifetime as an autistic individual or somebody with special needs, any type of special needs, is a very high vibrational old soul, okay? And they have, for lack of better words, nothing better to do than as an old soul to come back in the best costume that their soul can carry that will create the biggest effect for healing within their family and within the planet. And so these are, in my opinion, the Gandhis and Buddhas of the world coming back,
but only in a
but in the costume of an autistic child, or even a person with any of these different special needs that we have. All the they call it mental developmental delay now. I'm trying to use the correct terms, but these types of individuals, and they know a lot more than us. I mean, the one day my son was only 8 years old, we were in Toronto visiting a world-renowned brain craniosacral chiropractor, Dr. Turner, of Turner Wellness. And we were visiting our weekly visit. We went for 1 year to get his skull adjusted. That would help him a lot. And when we were leaving, a lady came over, asked for some money. I gave her some money, and then she pulled me and kissed me, and it kind of drooled down my shirt. And I went like that. And my son goes, "Mom, what are you doing?" He's 8 years old, and he's looking at me with that perplexed, "There's my wacko mom doing something wacko again." Yes. Anybody who has a child knows what I'm talking about. And I go, "Well, I felt like that was a really bad negative energy, and that it wasn't even coming from her. It was whoever she worked for. I don't know. That's what I got." So I just sent that
energy. Passing it off to you.
Yeah, I sent that energy back with the intention that it would go back to where it originated from, with a learning lesson involved. His response updated me like 3 lifetimes of what my soul would have to come to learn. And so I knew for sure this kid is like off the charts.
So what did he say?
He goes, "Mom, next time, just send it back with love."
To avoid the 10 steps in between.
And what I learned is that, sending it back with a learning lesson involved was really, the whole object was eventually, I just want people to have love, right?
Exactly.
So he just skipped all the malarkey and said, just send it back with love.
Wow,
and I had goosebumps this high driving down the road going home from Toronto back to Buffalo, New York, going,
out of the minds of babes.
He says something profound like that, like every 3 to 6 months, and upgrades me again. And I'm like, this is so cool. And again, I feel like we have a lot of past lives together. I I've told him before, and he looks at me like I'm crazy. I said, I feel the energy that you were my father in one lifetime, my grandfather in another lifetime, and even my husband. He goes, now that one's creepy. I go, well, I'm just telling you, this is what I see, and this is what I've been told. And he's like, okay, Mom, whatever.
So do you get a lot of people that come, especially since you're out of the MD's office, that come to you with pretty bad physical conditions that you can work with?
Yes.
So, and I know you have a very special method, because we were talking before the interview, but just how you go about this. Why don't you explain that to our audience? Like, just how you said you combine a number of things, you have to get permission. Just walk us through it.
Okay, well, I mix a few different healing modalities together that I've been certified and trained in. Mm-hmm. And I do channel in the information from the angels. I always ask for Archangel Michael to be in protection of the whole interaction. Mm-hmm. And then I personally talk to Mother Mary, because I talked to her when my son was born, and his whole life I just felt like the connection. And then the Holy Spirit and Jesus, which is probably part of my upbringing. But I don't ask for my clients to have the same beliefs. I respect whatever they believe. Mm-hmm. And then with the protection, and I can hear the voice of Mother Mary, so I trust it, because I talked to her and begged her to heal my son. Right. And, talk to Jesus, heal my son, everything. I was the mom who wanted my son to live and not die at one point, one of those desperate mom things. And the relationship got built to the point that and I did make that promise, if you can heal my son, I'll spread this and help others. And so I go in, and I had a young mom call me with a 4-year-old daughter that was going to have open heart surgery in 1 week, and it was going to be her 4th open heart surgery, and her daughter was only 4 years old. Wow. And she had heard me on a live radio show that morning, and when she called, she said, I've never talked to anybody like you before. I've never talked to a psychic medium or a healer, but I'm desperate for help for my daughter. I'm afraid for her life. She's going to have her 4th open heart surgery, and she's only 4. Wow. So I said, okay. She goes, I don't have any money to pay you. She said, we're almost in bankruptcy from her medical bills now. And I said, I do pro bono work for kids that have stripped their family of the money just out of being who they are, because I had that life. Right. And so that's who I do my pro bono work for. I take a few of them on per month that I can have time for. And she goes, well, thank you so much. And I said, so whatever we have to do, it's on me. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, that's good, because my husband would never be willing to pay you. And I said, that's okay. That's fine. So long story short, I basically had to have her get the daughter's permission, and the father had to give permission. Mm-hmm. That was a bit of a challenge, but I'll keep the story short, because it was a lot. We spent hours and hours doing different phone call sessions, and I do my healing work and my hypnosis over the phone primarily. Right. 75% of my private practice for hypnosis and psychic medium and healing is on the phone. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, well, we've got to look, once we get permission, into her operating manual that she came into the world with, because she has a reason why she has this medical disorder. And we have to find out why, and we have to find out what her parameters are of what she needs to have happen to be willing to get healed and live. Because there's a reason for this.
Some kind of karmic.
Yeah, we have to find out what it is, and then we have to ask permission if it's in her highest and greatest good, and what are the rules that have to be followed. Because each individual has an operating manual, and most people don't access it because there's no reason to. But in these situations, there is. So we found out a bunch of things, and I'm not going to go into all of them, but I will go into one or two. Okay. She would be willing to be healed of this heart condition if both sides of her family, both mom and dad's side, would pray for 7 generations backward of healing for their family and 7 generations forward.
Wow.
Because that was her purpose for coming in. And mom's side was totally on board with that, excuse me, and dad's side was not. They were the glasses half empty family, and then mom's side was glasses half full family. But her purpose was to make this happen.
Right.
And it took a lot of different channeling in the right information to have to say to dad. And then the other thing was, so that was one, and we accomplished that. And then the other thing was that mom and dad had to learn how to do this energy healing on her themselves.
Wow, that's a tall order.
They both had to be willing to open up to all this spirituality that neither one of them. Then they had to be willing to lay hands on them, and we had to run wiring system through her circulatory system. Long story short, they did. They spent an hour working with me, and they did it because they were desperate for their daughter to live.
Okay, because desperation sometimes.
When four open heart surgeries and the child is 4, I could see.
Yeah.
And it worked. And she did have her open heart surgery, and I'm skipping because there was 5 other things, and she's doing amazing. And that was a year ago. A year ago. And she did have to be put on a new diet. The mom and dad had to agree to go dairy-free and gluten-free and organic, and they did it because it was explained to them that this is a very high vibrational being, the soul of your daughter. And when you're an old soul. Yeah, when you're an old soul and you're a higher vibration, you have to eat higher vibration foods and have a higher vibration environment with less toxins. And so they had to put her on that to maintain the longevity of her health and wellness.
So good. So that's a nice little miracle.
It was an amazing miracle. I got to see the pictures.
I think the color in her face. You could actually get someone to genuinely pray when they had no interest in that whatsoever. No, I think that's a miracle.
Yeah, the family had to too.
That's what I mean.
The grandma and grandpa, not just the dad. Like that was humongous.
I find that's the biggest miracle here. Is like, what?
and initially that wasn't happening because the dad wasn't even wanting to talk on the phone about it, and he was actually taking a nap during the call. He was completely not interested.
Yeah.
But we did get him to the point where I was able to channel in the information from his guardian angels, because I'm able to talk to your higher self, which is your soul that knows your past, present, and future, and then your guardian angels, if you give me permission.
Right.
Without permission, I wouldn't even attempt to do it because there's spiritual laws that you don't cross over, and I would never, cross into somebody's free will or anything that's not of their highest and greatest good or part of their soul contract.
Mm-hmm. So you also speak to spirits from the other side for people as well.
Yes, I do the psychic medium readings for them.
I'm sure that can be, at the time when you're in grief and somebody's dying, if somebody can give you some kind of message, that must feel so good for you to be able to do that for people.
It was amazing because another call I got from that same radio show, the dad called, his 7-year-old son had just passed away.
Okay.
And the mom and dad were grieving. They were also divorced, but they were aligning together. And I was able to talk to their son on the other side and give the messages to the dad, which dad passed it on to mom and family. And then family called for readings too because they wanted to get information. And the son let them know what he was doing because he had a short soul mission on the planet to basically get upgraded as to what was going on the planet. And then he transitioned over to the other side so that he could do his work as an angel, because you can do some higher level work in some respects. Being a human being is always the most effective, but you can do things differently because you can be with 10 people at a time. And he wanted to be able to do his work from the other side, and and I said that this is what freaked the father out. I go, and I had never met him before. I go, so he always wanted to be an EMT or a firefighter, right? And they're like, yes. Right. And I said, well, he's telling me right now that that's what he's going to do on the other side. And and angels go to school to become, if they want to, they have the choice, they don't have to, that they can go to school and learn a certain career and then operate as an angel within that career. And a lot of times they'll pick something they didn't get to do while they were here, or something they want to do in their next reincarnation. Again, all things that some people believe and don't believe. But with that said, he was going to school to become a firefighter, and he was actually going to be practicing in that neighborhood. So he said, tell my dad that anytime the sirens go off and there's a fire in the local neighborhood, I am going to be on site. So you can know that I'm doing that. And that's just my beginner. Then I'm going to go to college, because what I'm ultimately going to do, and see, this was amazing for the family, because they had goosebumps, because they were able to know that their son is still continuing on and achieving and living a life, but on the other side. And that was so healing for them, because he ultimately was going to, once he passed that internship, so to speak, would then go to college to become a, what is the word that they use now? What's the name of the people who go on site of national huge disasters? There's a term for it.
I'm not sure,
but they work with the,
like when the big oil spills and things like that, or New Orleans,
they're on site
but he's on site from the other side.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So from the other side, as an angel, he will go in to the world national disasters that are not just one country, but they affect several countries.
Sure, like a nuclear disaster.
Yeah. And so, and hurricanes, tornadoes, this types of, and the oil. And he is going to be one of the emergency responders, helping people save their lives, and this type of thing. That was what he would be working
And so
toward.
often miracles happen in those situations too, where they cannot explain.
There you go. And that's what he wanted to do. That was his life's dream. And by mom and dad being able to find that out, imagine being the mom and dad finding out that their son is still continuing on and getting to live out their dreams. It's a lot better than just feeling like your son is gone.
Right. So Camille, with hypnosis, can you help somebody bring out intuitive or psychic abilities? For example, if they weren't naturally gifted with them as you were from generations of your family, can you help them cultivate these skills?
Yes, that's actually one of my special, unique transformation programs that I teach one-on-one in groups. And I believe that all people have the gifts of being psychic, intuitive, and being a medium. And I know that as sure as I stand here. However, some people have exercised that muscle a lot longer, so their gifts are heightened like mine. And others are just learning to start exercising it, so their muscle is just starting to grow. And then there's other people who have done it in several lifetimes, and they're back again, which is me. I've done it in more than 20 lifetimes, been a psychic healer. I found this out recently in the last few years. I didn't know that my whole life.
Did you do past life regression?
Yes.
Okay.
I do a lot of past life regressions for my clients so that they can find out when we're hitting an impasse where we can't find a trauma in their past that started the trigger of that negative programming pattern that's stuck in their subconscious mind.
Right.
Which is what we look for. So as a hypnotist or an NLP practitioner doing the neuro-linguistics programming, we're looking for the first time they remember feeling sad, depressed, maybe suicidal, whatnot. And we usually have them look prior to the age of 7. Now, if a person has been experiencing these feelings that are very strong, but we can't find anything that's happened in their life and they have no recollection. Either they've disassociated from it, which I can understand, but if they have, we still have to go into the subconscious mind and into the file cabinet and find out a story that the subconscious mind will give us that we can work with. So sometimes, since we can't get that, we go in and do a past life regression. And many people believe, and I'm totally okay when I work with a client, I'll tell them, you don't have to believe in past lives. Because some people believe that the past life regression is really just finding out the story that is a metaphor of what happened in this lifetime that you might not be able to remember. So whatever it is, whether it's a metaphor for something else that happened, just like the parables in the Bible that are really just parables but not real stories to teach a lesson, whatever the story is that your subconscious mind hands to us on a silver platter during this past life regression, we're going to go with it because we're going to set our intention that the highest and greatest good be done for you. So we're able to go in and find that out, and then we can work with that, and then through the NLP we can release the emotional blockage and the negative programming and patterning. And then once we've got that released, we've got a whole bunch of room in the brain and the subconscious mind. We have more megabytes available like on our computer.
Yeah.
Now we can upload the new program, which would be with hypnosis, of what they choose to experience in life, which would be far more positive than the negative they're releasing. And that's why we use past life regression. I only do it for clinical purposes for healing. I don't do it for just fun and curiosity.
Okay.
Because I want them to look at this as a valuable, important process that should be respected and honored, and that we are not playing games.
And what miracles have you seen, or miracle transformations, as a result of bringing people back to past lives, or metaphors for their life?
Well, I hate to go back to my son again, but I think it's what I'm most passionate about, obviously. I was able to find out some of the past life stuff about my son that helped me to change my viewpoint of him, which I needed to do to change the energy field.
That's right. I said that's quite an endeavor to have to do that.
I used the past life regression to be able to do that. And actually, I shouldn't say this, but I think she'll be okay with it. My medical doctor said to me one day, she said, "We've reached an impasse. If you pay me more money," which I was completely spending more money than I even had at the time, "for more allergy shots to help him, we're not going to get any further ahead, so save your money. You need to start looking into what did you do in your past life that caused you to have this." And I think it's because she's from India.
Yeah.
Her culture is more open.
Or maybe
to
she's
that.
seen so many cases that she has an intuitive ability to know when it's something from here or something.
She definitely has an intuitive ability. She was very gentle, and she said off the record, because as an MD I'm not allowed to know these things, she said. She said, look into numerology or something like that.
Right.
Because she had to be very cautious still protecting her MD. So I did. I looked into it, and I found out that my son was either a king or a lord or a master in all his past lives. So he was used to having control over the lands or the company or the kingdom, because he was a lion king too at one time, like an actual lion. And I know that for sure because I get emails home from school, not anymore, not in the last 2 years, but prior, because now he's at a huge whole wellness time in his life for 2 years. So I know we're not going to go backward anymore. But I used to get emails that said, your son was hissing at me and growling at me like a lion, and it was very realistic and scary. This is and I saw him do it. The now crazy thing is I used to have a cat face in high school that my friends would go, Camille, do the cat face, and I would do this crazy hissing face, and I was like, we must have both been lions in a past life. And he was the king of the, and I know
what's his lesson this lifetime if he's born into this body where, let alone he can't even survive in his own body for a short time.
Okay, so this is what I found, what I figured out. And because every time we reincarnate, we always have a soul lesson that we have contracted to learn to develop our soul to the next level of enlightenment. And we always have a soul purpose of what the difference is we're going to make in the world while we're here. So we have those two things, which is kind of our soul mission. And so his soul lesson that he contracted. Now, when you contract to learn this lesson, you basically pick all the players. So you pick your mom and dad, who's going to raise you to, and sometimes you pick very abusive, some people have very abusive parents, but it's to bring the compassion out in them and the empathy. My son didn't do that. But he contracted to learn what it's like, at least for the first part of his life, to have like an average lifestyle. There's no maids and butlers.
Well, I mean, it's even less than average.
It is actually way less. You're right. I mean, as far as financially, because he was used to having an expense accounts unlimited. You know, anything he ever could want, he would just name it as the king, right? So financially, just an average. His dad takes him camping, tent camping. His mom takes him to a hotel with a swimming pool, kind of financial life so far. Maybe that'll change down the road. But also, he didn't get to be the most popular person, well-known in the world, and everybody just, you know, bowing over him. He's been hated by many for his behavior. We were kicked out of every Sunday school at every church we ever tried to go to. I gave up trying after about 5 churches and 5 Sunday schools.
And schools, too. You said he was kicked out.
And then he was kicked out of 2 kindergartens in 1 year. The private one that I sent him to, and then the public one. And then he was kicked out of 5th grade again. That's when I homeschooled him, because they said that they were going to have, he would be suspended for 5 days, and then they would have a meeting to decide if they were going to have him back. And I said, no, the teacher who did this to him had him last year. She set this up. I believe it. Bring her down here. Let's interview her. And she even said, I feel defeated. She was purposely trying to, she instigated him so that she could get him kicked out of her class because she didn't want him this year.
Yeah, she was overwhelmed with it.
So I can understand. I probably would be overwhelmed too if I were her, having 6 of them instead of 1. I was overwhelmed just having 1. But I said, I've already evaluated the situation. You can't have him. You don't deserve him. And so he was on a waiting list for a program that would suit him, but it was for 3.5 years. In the meantime, my son has learned, because he does have, once I figured this out, I started watching him. He'll sit there in bed reading a book like he's a 90-year-old man, you know, at the age of 12. And he'll be like, Mom, can you bring me a bottle of water? I'm like, excuse me.
What's your last name?
Excuse me. I am not your maid. I'm not your wife. I'm not your daughter. I'm not any of those things. And we don't have a butler or maid and clean up this room while you're at it and go get your own bottle of water. Because I had to get him. I'm like, you contracted for a regular house, a regular life.
Get used to
and on the days that he said that he was, you know, hated me, which he 2 minutes later would tell me he loved me. But you know how normal kids are. I would say, hey, you picked me. Are you unhappy with your choice? No, you're the best mom in the universe. I said, I know. That's what I contracted to do, and I will do that, which means on certain days you're going to have to hate me.
Oh, that is funny. So what would you, I mean, through all the things you've been, the various modalities you've learned, your psychic intuition, hypnosis, if you could leave our viewers with one thing about the possibilities and the opportunities we have when we tap into our unconscious or even the psychic realm or channel or whatever it is, what would you want to leave them with?
I'm asking the angels
what
would be of the highest and greatest good to pass along, because I feel like there's something even more than what I could offer.
Okay.
And I'm giving you that because I'm hearing that the message that they would like to impart, I'm just asking if they want to be identified or not. Archangel Metatron, for those of you who know who he is or she, Archangel Michael and Archangel Raphael are coming in as a collective. 3, wanting to update the collective consciousness of the planet for Christ consciousness. And they are saying never, ever underestimate the power of the mind, body, and spirit working as a trio with the intention of pure, unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness, unconditional compassion, and non-judgment. And that those are the source of all healing.
Huh. Thank them for us.
Thank you. Oh, we always thank them, even if it's quietly in our head.
Right. Great. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a privilege and an honor, and I appreciate that so much.
You're welcome.